Thank you, Acting President. Today is National Flag Day. Australia's first Prime Minister, Edmund Barton, announced a competition to design our federal flag on 29th of April 1901. Despite only 32 days to submit designs, more than 32,000 entries were received. 5 entrants who submitted similar designs were declared equal winners and shared in the £200 prize. They were Ivor Evans, Leslie Hawkins, Egbert Nuttall, Annie Dorrington and William Stevens. How fitting that a schoolboy, an optician's apprentice, an architect, an artist and a ship's officer had the same vision for our national flag. How fitting that the flag to represent the people of Australia was designed by Australian people. On the 3rd of September 1901, our national flag was first flown over the dome of Melbourne's Exhibition Building, the site of our first Commonwealth Parliament. The Brisbane Courier captured the sentiment of that moment, stating, "Nationhood is better for the concrete expression, and nothing will stir up enthusiasm or rouse the sense of regard for the country in which we live like a constant sight of the flag of Australia." It wasn't until 1953 that the Parliament passed legislation to formalise what had become the routine practice of flying the national flag. So what of our national flag's symbols? There's the constellation of 5 stars, the Southern Cross, a reminder of our unique place in the world and the common geography Australians share. My elders from a tiny community near Tennant Creek have spoken about how the Southern Cross is part of dreaming, or chukurupa. So, contrary to the views of activists, Indigenous Australians certainly are represented by our national flag. There's the Union Jack, a reminder of our British heritage and the Christian ethos that forged a modern nation. And there's the 7-pointed Commonwealth or Federation Star, 6 points for our 6 states and a 7th point for our territories, a reminder of our unity. Together, these symbols remind us of our nation's history and the contributions of generations of Australians, of the Indigenous Australians who knew and cared for the land, of the British settlers who gifted us the institutions and ideas that have underpinned democracy, modernity and progress, of the farmers, miners, labourers, builders, manufacturers and constitutional drafters who transformed colonies into a federated country, of the soldiers, sailors and airmen who served to defend our nation and defeat evil, including more than 103,000 who gave their lives, of the migrants who arrived after the Second World War and in the decades after to this day, who embraced our values, helped build our nation and became cherished Australians. When we look at our flag, we remember our history in the round. Yes, we remember the dark chapters, like the mistreatment of Indigenous Australians and returned Vietnam veterans. But we also recognise that our achievements and successes far outweigh our wrongdoings and failures. Australia was formed without civil war or the level of bloodshed most other countries have known. We haven't experienced the enduring enmities of difference or separatism that have beset other nations. A defining national achievement has been the weaving together of Indigenous, British and broader migrant threads of our story. Each bestows an inheritance. Today, we Australians naturally have many differences. Differences of where we live and work, differences of ancestry and heritage, differences of faith and fellowship, differences of age and gender, differences of opinion. Despite these differences, our flag reminds us that we're united by our common values. We're aspirational, egalitarian and compassionate. We believe in reward for hard work. We treasure individual freedom. We respect the rule of law. We want our nation to be defended. We have a sense of duty to those we love, to our families, to our communities and to our nation. Our national flag represents so much. Our history, story, geography, resources, people, mateship, deeds, sacrifices, institutions, traditions, values, unity, loyalty and patriotism. Our national flag signifies our common citizenship and fellowship that makes strangers acquaintances. Our national flag is for times of celebration and times of commemoration. And as historian Geoffrey Blainey said, our national flag links the living and the dead. When one appreciates our national flag symbolism, it's impossible to not have a sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the fortune to live in this great southern land. Gratitude for our forebears and all they did to protect this country and ensure it prospers. With gratitude comes something more important, a sense of responsibility. Our national flag reminds us that we are the custodians of a remarkable legacy. We have a duty to hand over to the next generation a country better than the one we inherited. Our national flag reminds us of the duty of responsible citizenship, doing something that's bigger than ourselves. For example, raising a family, contributing to one's community, working hard in a chosen field, or serving the nation in some capacity. When one understands the history behind our national flag, when one values its symbolic weight, it's beyond comprehension that the burning of our national flag is not a criminal offence. Like most Australians, I was appalled by the footage of pro-Palestinian protesters burning our national flag in Melbourne on Sunday the 3rd of August. That event coincided with a disruptive, disgraceful and divisive rally across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, a rally where some protesters chanted genocidal slogans, displayed Hamas symbols and Nazi swastikas, waved flags of terrorist organisations and carried a photograph.
Nampijinpa Price, could you please resume your seat? Senator McKim on a point of order.
Yes, thank you, President. I asked for a ruling, please, on whether the senator who's wrapped in the national flag at the moment is contravening the standing order that prevents props. And I do want to make the point that if it's okay for Senator Nampijinpa Price to wrap herself in this flag, I would intend to wrap myself in a Palestinian flag and come into the chamber and exercise the same rights that Senator Nampijinpa Price is currently exercising.
Senator McKim, sorry, do you wish to respond on the point of order?
Point of order. Senator McKim chose to debate the issue rather than raise a point of order. And if we're not going to wrap ourselves in the national flag, I would ask that when you're considering your ruling, Deputy President, the flag is not a prop. It sits in our chamber right now. And so if we're going to mean it's ruled out of order over a senator's shoulder, it will have to be considering its stance in our chamber itself.
Senator, I did allow both points of order to stray into the debating point because I think this is clearly a sensitive issue, particularly on this particular day. I am going to refer this matter to the President because I think it does require consideration of the President. However, Senator Nampijinpa Price, in order not to set a precedent at this point, could I ask you please to finish your speech without the flag on your shoulders? And that way we do not, Senator Mackenzie, I will address you directly, we do not want to set a precedent in this place that would have very unfortunate consequences for the future. And I think you know what I'm talking about there, Senator Mackenzie. Senator Nampijinpa Price, you have the call.
Thank you, Acting President. So disappointing from the Greens, but also so typical. You can wear a keffiyeh in here. Perhaps you should remove that article from you whenever you walk through these chambers for the benefit of all Australians in this country. Yes, snark all you like. It's revolting. You don't love this country the way I do, certainly not like most Australians do. But you would rally along these terrorist organisations, the Greens would, as you have, and probably also stand beside the photograph of the Iran's oppressive dictator, as many of you Greens have, and like your Senator Faruqi, who have called for genocide in this country against those that support Israel. A rally the Prime Minister astonishingly described.
Senator Nampijinpa Price. Could you please resume your seat on a point of order, Senator McKim?
Thank you. 193.3, Standing Order 193.3 prevents a reflection on a senator. A senator was named, Senator Faruqi was named by Senator Nampijinpa Price, and she had improper and, in fact, inaccurate motivations attached to her
Senator McKim,
actions.
you've made your point of order. Please resume your seat. Senator Nampijinpa Price, I would ask you to withdraw, given that you named a particular senator.
President, I would like to understand what it was that I'd said about.
That was incorrect.
That was incorrect.
We're not going to debate this. We're not going to debate this. A senator has objected to something you said. Please withdraw and continue.
I withdraw, but I will never call out genocidal notions like from the river to the sea, like some others do. A rally that shouldn't have been permitted to proceed.
Senator McKim, please. Senator McKim, what is the point of order?
Point of order is, consistently and repeatedly, the chair has required withdrawals to be made unconditionally. That has been absolutely consistent from the chair, that withdrawals are made unconditionally. I ask you to enforce that
Senator
ruling, which has repeatedly been given by the President.
Please sit down. I'm happy to rule. Senator McKenzie, do you really wish to add? I asked Senator Nampijinpa Price to withdraw and continue her statement. She withdrew, then she continued her contribution. Senator McKim. That's right. Senator Nampijinpa Price.
Thank you. And the Greens certainly don't respect or acknowledge Indigenous Australians in this Senate. So the burning of our national flag on that wretched weekend wasn't the first time it's happened, and of course it won't be the last, but it is any wonder it took place. A disrespect of our country and our values has been on the rise since the sordid events on the steps of the Sydney Opera House on the 9th of October. This government's supine response to the crisis of anti-Semitism gripping our nation has only emboldened an anti-Australian sentiment that is shared by the Greens. The protests at home and in other democratic nations have in common a national self-loathing and anti-Westernism that has been a hallmark of many protests since the late 1960s. The divisive voice referendum hasn't helped matters. What's more, our national flag isn't even afforded the respect it deserves by the Prime Minister. His prerequisite for standing in front of our national flag is standing in front of course, the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander flags too. Yes, both are proclaimed flags, but not national flags. We have one national flag, just like almost every sovereign nation. The Prime Minister's decision to stand in front of three flags isn't an act of respect, it's an act of disrespect. From disrespect comes division. From division comes disloyalty. And from disloyalty comes greater motive for desecration. Of course, no country should be beyond criticism. And in a democracy like ours, there's many ways one can voice criticism. May we forever cherish the right to freedom of speech and wearing our Australian flag. But the burning of our national flag goes beyond free speech and political protest. It's an abuse of liberty. It's a rejection of the responsible citizenship. It's a display of historical ignorance. It's an expression of national ingratitude. It's performative disrespect with subversive characteristics. It's an act intended to sow division, disunity, national hatred and even violence. And no self-respecting nation, especially a country with Australia's achievements, should tolerate the burning of a national flag. There are no provisions in the Flag Act of 1953 or other legislation that criminalises this. Things need to change, especially at a time when our nation is facing social cohesion challenges unlike we've seen in generations. The Coalition calls on the Albanese government to enact legislation that criminalises the destruction or desecration of our national flag.